Welcome to the Alexa conference. We're here inside the Alexa Theater in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Welcome YouTube, and back there, welcome Facebook. And this video is the Voice First FM network, and so we're just going to have a quick conversation.
That's right.
They get to listen and watch, and so introduce yourself in Vixen Labs and tell folks who you are, why you're here.
That's right. Event. So hi folks, I'm James Poulter. Most people call me JP. If you find me on social, you can do that. And I'm the CEO and co-founder of Vixen Labs. We're a voice-first strategy, experience design and marketing agency based in London. For the past 3 years, I spent the time as the Lego Group, the toy company. They make small bits of plastic for children, heading up emerging platforms and partnerships and technology there. And I left that business in October to found Vixen with my co-founder Jen Heap, who ex-creative director from a number of big advertising agencies in Europe, and we basically wanted to put together an offering that really helped people create more human experiences. That's where we see voice being a really massive opportunity, and conversational interfaces overall. But voice in particular, because it has the power to kind of create a space and place like no other medium. You actually can inhabit kind of these characters, and when you speak to something, it creates real resonance. And so that's where we see it's a more human interface, it's a more human way of connecting with our technology, and ultimately designing experiences that we want people to have, so that then when they have connections with one another, they continue to have that kind of more human experience. So that's what we're all about. And here with the team also from Voice Summit, which is the big event happening in Newark in New Jersey later in this year, of which I sit as one of the programming directors as well. So super proud to be here, and pleased to be with you guys. Yeah, we had a great time doing a podcast.
We did this week. That was wonderful. I really love talking about the future, and we'll get there in just a moment. But tell me a bit about the experience of this conference, and of course, we can just have a conversation. YouTube can listen. Facebook, you feel so far away. Come closer, Facebook. Back there. Come closer. Come closer to us. Okay, so why don't you tell, we can just have a conversation. They can listen. What's the conference been like for you? Like the people, there's 500 people here.
That's right.
Amazon's like the major sponsor. There's some incredible tech, agency, strategists. I mean, a lot of cool stuff happening. So how does this give you an impression of what's 2019 going to be like based on what you're experiencing here?
That's right. So I think the thing about the Alexa conference in particular is that it brings together some of the leading people that are building on top of the big core platforms. So you've got Voice First Tech that are here that are building new experiences to help skill builders and action builders create better experiences, do it more efficiently. You've got other suppliers that are helping with the analytics and reporting and research. And for us, that's just super fascinating to see some of the kind of new infrastructure that's being built around the voice industry. For us in particular though, and thinking about the kind of trends and where everything is going, we're beginning to see kind of verticalization happen within the voice market, which is really interesting. It's not just kind of everyone in the learning phase, but we're beginning to see some clear kind of vertical markets open up. Healthcare being a massive one, seeing a lot of people in that space. Utilities as well, in terms of whether that's your gas and electric supplier through to kind of more transport and rail type utilities. So we're seeing some real kind of segmentation in the market, and that's presenting new solutions as well as new service offerings as well. So I think for 2019, for me, I see a lot more focus as we go into having these kind of more vertically based solutions. I think we're going to see more people pivot into building things for multimodal devices as well, away from just the kind of voice only. And we talk a lot, we're here on Voice First FM, right? We talk about voice first, but I think we're going to very quickly get to not voice only. And so voice is the primary input, but then voice plus image plus video, and perhaps also like kinetic actions coming back from these devices, where you're going to be activating your microphone, you're going to be setting a microwave, you're going to be setting off maybe your kind of lawnmower or your vacuum cleaner moving around the room with voice. And so you're going to see these actual kind of real life actions that are happening in the home, beyond just kind of smart lights and IoT. So I think that's definitely a trajectory for this year.
What have you heard either here or recently that really inspires you for the future? Like when you think out 2 or 22 years, and you think either your own vision or things that you've heard from others that are kind of casting this vision of what can be either for humanity, or for the enterprise. So give me some insights in terms of what's inspiring you and motivating to be involved in the voice first industry, right?
I think the thing with voice, because it's an ambient technology, it's something that we're putting in our homes and it's living around us all the time, is that then it becomes something that's second nature to interact with. But what's interesting is that most of the data suggests that those people that are getting these devices in their homes are becoming more cognizant of what they're saying to them, because they're becoming more aware of their own data. And that, to me, I think is a big potential hurdle and also a massive opportunity for us as an industry, as voice becomes to be one of the most dominant kind of means of interaction with our computing devices. What's fascinating, I'm a parent of 2 small children.
How old?
A 3.5-year-old and an 8-month-old.
Okay,
So we're really in the thick of it, is why I look like this. Sorry, YouTube, it's not just the camera.
Mine are 6 and 9, so I feel much more relaxed. They make their own breakfast.
Yeah, so you've been there. But one of the interesting things, being kind of a elder millennial parent, I'll put myself in that bracket.
I'm with you.
Is that for the first time in human history, we have a digitally native generation giving birth to the next digitally native generation. It's the first time it's ever happened. And so their expectation is completely different to what ours is. And we actually have the opportunity, and I would say the responsibility, to teach the next generation of technologists and the next generation of future consumers what life was like before and after the great kind of technological revolution of the internet and kind of pervasive access to data, because we're the last ones that get to do that. That's right. Everyone that comes after us will know no different. The internet is like hands and feet, like breathing and air to them. It's just present. And so that relies upon us, a massive responsibility to get this right. And that means teaching these language models that we're building, teaching these AIs, teaching these machine learning protocols in the right way, so that they inhabit the behaviors that we want them to inhabit for the next generation, because they are always going to be reliant upon the data they're aggregating today to build experiences for the future. So that's where I think we're interested in the ethics around some of these things, the kind of moral choices that we embed into some of these algorithms, into these assistants, and making sure that we set up society to have good relationships with this AI and good relationships with this technology. And I see it, and you probably see it with your kids, right? The most obviously, it's like, when they don't get what they want out of an assistant, what do? They shout at it, they get aggressive to it, they get louder, and they don't always say please and thank you. And so trying to kind of build models where we encourage good digital behavior with these assistants, because we're not too far away from a time, and certainly if you want to go to 2025, from you being able to pick up the phone or whatever it is that you may or may not be holding or embedded in you, and try and talk to customer services of some business, and you're not going to know whether it's a human or an AI at the other end. You just won't be able to determine it. And so the question is like, well, how will you behave?
Or what if you send your AI to make that call?
Well, even more so,
and will your AI actually represent you correctly?
And is it representing you, or what does it represent? Because right now, our experience of Alexa or Google Assistant or Cortana or Siri or whoever is broadly the same. It knows a bit more about you than it knows about me, and vice versa, but ultimately it's the same experience. As we move more towards the digital twin kind of existence, where we've got our own personal assistants that are personal kind of, if you want to go down the Philip Pullman kind of route, like Damon type, companions that follow us around and that go from surface to surface and environment to environment. We have to work out what is the right way of building those experiences that subscribe to a certain set of societal norms that we're all going to be happy with. And that is a massive challenge, and it's going to happen in our lifetimes and within the career horizons of this generation. And so it's our responsibility to get that right. So I think when I think to the future, there's all the fun stuff we can do, the utilities, the storytelling, just making life simpler. That's great. But when we go beyond just these pinpoint solutions to kind of more general intelligence, or things that at least mimic general intelligence, that inhabit the spaces and interact on our behalf with other robots and with other humans, that is a potentially just paradigm shifting existence that we just haven't experienced before, and that brings with it all sorts of questions about what type of society we want to have where those things are happening. So I'm excited to kind of like have these conversations with yourself and people like who are here at the conference and are going to be at kind of future events this year, to really kind of dig into what that might mean for us as we are the technologists that will be responsible for making that happen.
Right. What do you think about, as things progress and harder decisions need to be made, who would you like to see influencing these decisions? Like, do you think this should be a crowdsourced thing? Like, let's just take something that probably is not that easy to answer. Should you and I have a shadow of our personality living inside of an Alexa or assistant for our great-great-grandkids to interact with in the future, like, we may not have an answer for that.
That's right.
And as you think about that and the other hundreds somewhat complicated things that voice and machine learning are going to provide to us as options, who do you think should be influencing those decisions? Is it this community of for-profit, capitalist people that are trying to build great tech, both for business, money, and good humanity? Should it be government?
Yeah,
Should it be nonprofit organization? Like, help me understand how you contextualize difficult decisions that are to come, no matter, regardless if we want it to or not.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So talk to me about that.
So I think that the governance structures around these things are pretty nascent right now. And that they need to evolve, and that's going to be a collaboration effort. We need a groundswell of movement from societies where we begin to take more ownership of our own data. That just, I think, needs to happen, and we're beginning to see the first fruits of that happening through regulation that's come, things like GDPR, PSD2 that's coming through next year when it comes to our banking regulations. I think HIPAA and kind of these regulations around our own healthcare data. All of these things are they're coming from government and central regulations or from conglomerate regulations, but what they're doing is beginning to drive behavior change in individuals, where they're waking up to the idea that I should probably care a little bit more than I have cared about my my digital safety. And in the same way that we went from generations past where you would leave the door unlocked, and you would leave your bike in the street and not worry about it. We're now not in that society in our physical world. I think the same thing is happening in our digital world, that people begin to realize that two-factor is something that you need to worry about. It's kind of a necessity, that password security and all those kind of things at a very fundamental level. But more so than that is that it's making people aware that actually their data is an extension of themselves and isn't something that should just belong to a corporation that they should be able to access, but is something that they should own and give access when they want to. And so we're not far, I think, from that point where people stop seeing the data as something that's theirs to retrieve, but as something for theirs to give. Now, if we get to that, then I think what we will then need is more. And I think you and I both agree that there are some decentralized structures that can potentially.
I'll agree with anything you say. I just think you're that brilliant. Yes, I agree.
But thank you. But so decentralized structures may help us answer some of those questions. But right now, we all know that the technology is still a long way away, and also just general consumer understanding of what it could potentially do is still a way off. So I don't really see that being a viable option within the next decade, if I'm honest. I think maybe kind of 2 decades plus, we might see us get there. In the intervening period, what we need is the governments to actually pay attention to these regulations and be better educated. I think if you look in the wake of what happened after Cambridge Analytica, and kind of when Zuck sits in front of a Congress panel and has to educate them about how Facebook makes money, that's a problem. And that's not just something isolated here in the US, it is something that is a global issue. And then at the other end of the extreme, you have governments like China that actually have very good understanding of data management, but they are kind of gone to the other extreme. And I think there is somewhere in the middle that is a kind of happy medium that we need to go after. So I think government regulation will be one. I think then also independent trade bodies and industry regulation is another big area. Right now, there's no one that regulates voice. No one's thinking about that. There's no one regulating AI, to be quite honest, and certainly not machine learning in many ways. There are some of these data regulations, like I say, things like GDPR, which are forcing the hand of companies to think more responsibly about how they handle consumer data. But consumer protection around some of these more specific use cases isn't really there right now. And I think you look at what the FCA and what the FDA have done in different kind of places here in the US, or I think in the UK, we've got industry like advertising industry, we've got the Ofcom regulates the broadcast industry, for example, in the UK. We will need some kind of digital regulators to come in over time that are well educated, that have kind of powers to actually implement kind of fine subsidies where those are appropriate, and kind of push the industry forward, because that's what we're going to need for these things to become ubiquitous if that's what we want. But we need to collectively decide, is that what we want?
Do you think we're going to decide that, or do you think it's going to happen? We have to navigate.
I think that most of these technological revolutions, the way that these things happen, if you go all the way back to the printing press, is that something comes in, it's disruptive, it becomes mass adopted, and there are the corrections then to regulate it. Publishing, for example, is a good analogy. Ham radio was the way in which that kind of went out. People started piggybacking on Spectrum, it goes viral, people start standing up stations, and then government comes in to correct that and regulate Spectrum. And I think the same thing is probably going to happen kind of in the open web. We're already seeing the open web is not so open, right? So I think if you continue to see that kind of with the peel back of net neutrality and things like that, those do kind of raise some fairly significant questions about what it means to have a free and open web. And I think that I personally would be an advocate of seeing that repealed and kind of go back to a more open standard. But I think in between now and then, these kind of big tech players, there's some kind of ironies that we need the commercial entities like your Amazons, like your Googles, of which we partner with, are great fans of what they're doing in many respects. But we need them because government right now isn't putting the money in that would send up the services, and so we're reliant upon some of that kind of capitalist investment. And I'm a big believer that that will help drive progress and progression, as long as there is kind of governmental powers that can also kind of help balance that when maybe those go beyond the checks and balances that we would otherwise have. So that's where I'm hopeful.
What do you think about like lobbyists, public affairs, public relations around the voice industry, AI, machine learning, but tied to the voice industry? Do you know any lobbyists, anybody in public affairs? Is anybody doing that? Should that be done? If it should be done, who? Sorry, it's a big question that I've been thinking about, that we've been talking about, and you may have insight. And if it should be done, if it's not being, or if more needs to be done, who are the right people to approach that and get involved?
I think that the voice thing is interesting because it is an output and it's a layer on top of these other technologies. The regulation really needs to come in around particularly the use of the data and then the kind of access to that data. So, for example, we don't have any government structures or governance structures around machine learning in general right now. At least I don't know of any. I don't think that we're at that stage.
There's probably more happening in Europe. There
is more, but it's predominantly still focused on the data ownership. So the question will be is where do we go from just the governance of how data is captured, stored, handled and deleted, which is where right to be forgotten, where GDPR kind of currently plays. How do we go from that to thinking about the algorithmic choices that these companies are making on behalf of us to how to present that data? And I think if you look at the fake news kind of scandals and like I say Cambridge Analytica and things like that, that has shone a light on the fact that we maybe need better governance around what these algorithms are doing. But is anyone doing it? We see some lobbyists, kind of happening. There is, kind of the net neutrality lobby, as I mentioned, and things like that here in the US that is, kind of permissioning the FCA to kind of pay more attention. But on a global scale, we're certainly not at that stage, and I think that will happen. It's almost inevitable because I think consumer protection probably will, kind of rear its head enough that people want to, kind of fight that battle. But right now we're at a very early stage.
Now, what kind of projects do you and your team at Vixen love to work on? What do you want to work on this year? And is that going to be a similar pursuit as the years go on, or do you kind of have a vision for where you want to go with Vixen Labs?
Yeah, so at the moment what we're particularly looking at is, like I say, trying to make a kind of more human interface and trying to use some of these big platforms that we're all putting on our homes to make life easier. But that doesn't necessarily just mean life easier like shopping easier or making, kind of doing the dishes easier, but actually how can we kind of give back to society in some of the ways in which we're building things. So we're actively building our own projects around helping some of the more kind of socially conscious companies out there, and also some of the kind of charitable and third sector stuff that needs to get done to actually have a presence on some of these platforms, to make giving easier, to make donations easier, and things like that. And then on the commercial end, we also want to make sure that we're driving the category in general, particularly in Europe where it's still somewhat it's growing rapidly. We're around about 1 in 6 homes in the UK, for example, now has a smart speaker, but we're not quite there at the quarter, and obviously the scale is different to here in the US. So we want to keep pushing the category forward, and we've got to do that through some, making sure it's entertaining, making sure that it's interesting, making sure it's providing utility. We're doing some work with some of the public service broadcasters as well, where we see that public service as well is a big potential opportunity to play here. And we've met here at Alexa Summit, the folks from NPR. We've got colleagues from the BBC that will be coming to Voice Summit in July to talk about exactly what they're doing in that space. And so we see a lot of opportunity there, and we want to build experiences that, like I say, make it more human, and allow people to access their data in ways that kind of gets out of the way, allows them to live a kind of more fruitful life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Why don't we walk over together with everybody over to the booth for the Voice Summit?
Yeah.
And you can tell us about the Voice Summit, then we can go look at the poster and see
that.
The visual. And everybody, watch out. We got this huge audience. Come on, everybody, watch out, move. Watch out. I have a huge imagination. You'd be surprised. I think they're all just on the edge of their seat. They're not really there, but in my mind, we're
in a nice space. This is all good. So Voice Summit is happening this July, from the 22nd of July over in Newark, New Jersey. And Pete, who is the founder of Modev and CEO of the Voice Summit, is also here with us.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
So Voice, is happening in Newark again. It's the second round, and we just put the call for proposals live
Set that down.
yesterday, so that people can submit their talks and ideas. So Pete, maybe
I tell you what, I think we're going to expect about 500 proposals to be submitted by March 15th. And
For speakers.
I think we're already up to 25 or 30 proposals have already been submitted just in the last day.
Oh, wow.
So definitely get your
Because
proposals
the press release
in.
just went out yesterday.
Press release went out yesterday, and I'm seeing the emails flying in on submitted proposals. So we're really excited about all the things that are happening in this space.
Yeah.
And definitely would love to see more talk ideas.
Yeah, and we'll sit down separately, but tell me a bit about the podcast that you have been doing here, because that's a big part of what JP's been working on.
Yeah.
And so maybe just give me some insight in terms of it's kind of voice inside or beat?
Inside voice.
Inside voice.
Yeah, basically the idea is that I've always wanted to include people in sort of behind the scenes of what happens to build an event. You know, it is like building events is
it's a big undertaking.
It's a big undertaking. It is a sausage factory. You know, you don't want to know, but actually,
I
want
to know.
people to know.
I mean,
I want to share.
I know, and I don't like to know. I wish I
want
never
to share
found
more
out.
about the journey. I want to share more about the journey of putting on these events, and the journey also includes all the people that we talk to every day.
Yeah.
So whether it's speakers or sponsors or vendors or partners, media partners, we want the story to start to be told of what's happening inside the conference.
I think we went last year, nearly 3,000 people in Newark this past July. This July we're going to go to 5,000 people with much more verticals. And I think, as we were speaking earlier, from what we've seen here at Alexa Conference, that actually there's a lot more verticalization happening in the market, and that will be reflected in what's happening also at Voice Summit, because we see that there are real specialists and specialist sectors kind of rising up out of the general kind of focus within the voice industry. So you can expect more of that as well.
That's great. So give us the call to action in terms of what folks can do to find out more about the summit, to listen to the podcast, at least those couple things regarding kind of your involvement with voice.
So you can check out the podcast on wherever you get your podcasts, all good podcast retailers. It's just Inside Voice. Please go subscribe. Send in your comments. We're on Anchor as well, so if you want to submit your own voicemails into the show, you can do that over on the Anchor app. And we're going to be going behind the scenes of what's happening at Voice Summit every week between now and July 22nd when we launch.
It's July 22nd in Newark.
In Newark, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and there'll be other satellite events also happening in the run-up as well, and more to be released on that.
And you're expecting about 5,000 attendees, several hundred sponsors, exhibitors, and leaders, speakers.
We think we'll probably double the event last year. Last year we planned on 1,500. We ended up with 3,000. So we set the mark this year for 5,000 people, and we would love to blow that away as well.
Yeah.
People can also go to voicesummit.ai, which is the event site, and find all the information on how to submit a topic. So we'd love to see more speaking proposals.
Okay. Yeah. More speaking proposals. Send them in. You're competing against 500 people, so you better be amazing to get a slice of the stage.
It's gonna be hard.
Yep.
Well, thanks for letting us come bombard you for a moment.
Sure,
JP, that was
absolutely.
wonderful.
Lovely to
interview.
chat to you. Thanks so much.
YouTube, over and out.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
later, Facebook.